I have failed the type 1 diabetes community. At least that's what it feels like to me. See, I had a pretty rough experience with burnout, and it was not just linked to diabetes, but diabetes was impacted severely. It happened over a month ago, almost 2 months ago, and I've had a hard time recording this episode because I just didn't quite know what words to put to this message and how to bring hope to you. But I've finally found a way to articulate the ins and outs of burnout, its impact on my blood glucose control, or lack thereof, and ultimately its far-reaching impacts on all areas of life. And in this episode, I want to give you the raw truth. I want to share with you something that hurts to share and something that I think is important for you to know. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Matt Van de Vecht. I do live with type 1 diabetes, and I used to be able to say that I've been above 90% time in range for over 5.5 years straight, consecutively. In today's episode, I'm going to break down exactly why I can no longer say that and the difficulties that type 1 brings on the mental and emotional side as well as physical. I hope this serves as a reminder to some of you, and I hope it serves as a warning to others who may not have experienced this yet, because in this episode I want to share the reality of what type 1 diabetes can be. I hope you enjoy it to whatever extent you can enjoy a story like this, and I hope it's useful for you. After my Ironman race season was over, I thought that I was on top of the world, thought that I was going to keep going, and I ignored the advice of my coach. That was the first red flag, right? And my coach, my wife, my family all told me that, Matt, you're an Ironman now. Chill out. Take a break, man. I've been pursuing this whole triathlon thing and King of the Mountain for, about 2.5 years, I think. And I never knew it was going to end in an Ironman, to be fully transparent. It was just saying yes to the next challenge enough times took me all the way up the ladder till eventually I was like, well, the only thing that's left is to actually become an Ironman. So I guess I'm going to do that. And I did. And I'm an Ironman now. But the process, what you didn't see behind the scenes, was gruesome. Before my last full distance Ironman race, I nearly broke mentally. Had a sit down with my wife, and the next day with my parents, and the next day with my siblings, and ultimately asked for support and also for prayer because I was not in a good place mentally. And as somebody who has a history of depression and at more than one point in my life suicidal ideation, they had cause for concern, and it was helpful for me to voice that to them, but obviously worrying to them as well. And long story short, I let them know that there's just too much going on, and Ironman was too much of a big question mark for me, and it was stressing me the heck out with my blood sugars, because training aside, which is insane enough as it is, I'm out riding my bike and running and swimming for 10 or 11 hours at once sometimes. Like, I would leave before sunrise and I would get back after sunset. It's just like, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. But I let them know, this is wrecking my mental health. And that's where the seeds were sown. I didn't know it at the time, but burnout was looming right around the corner. Now, I am and have always been very good at forcing myself to do things that I don't want to do if the outcome is desirable enough, right? I wanted to become an Ironman. I decided I would become an Ironman, and nothing was going to stop me, including burnout. I was going to push through and do whatever it took. And I think that there's a certain degree of commonality with a lot of Ironman athletes, that's how they approach life, and that's kind of what it takes as well to be an Ironman, right? Like, this isn't going to stop me. I'm going to finish. Something insane as what has been dubbed the world's hardest single day endurance event that a human can do. So it makes sense. But after that race, most athletes take some time off. I think I took a total of 2 days off and then hopped back on my bike. And the reason I did that is because I had a half Ironman that I needed to compete in, and ultimately set a personal record in. That one had its own challenges and disruptions to my mental health as well. But after that event, we went to Hawaii, and it was supposed to be a vacation, but my blood sugars had other plans. For one reason or another, blood sugars were not cooperating. Stubborn highs, a couple urgent lows, and as somebody who typically sees maybe 2 or 3 lows a year at this point, because I use blood sugar formulas, I can calculate and avoid lows like the plague, because I hate them. It was shocking, right, to have my control swept out from underneath me. There's a number of factors that go into that, but ultimately, I didn't care anymore. It's going to be super blunt. Hawaii was meant to be the mental break after all of the insanity of training for an Ironman. And then keep in mind, I trained for and completed a full distance Ironman, which is 140.6 miles of swimming, biking, and running, in the same month that I launched my book and brought it to bestseller status. That's a lot to do. And that's outside of running a business, having a family life, or trying to. Managing diabetes, of course, that gets on the calendar for taking time out of our mental efforts as well, right? So Hawaii was meant to be like this chill zone, and it was probably the worst control I've seen in ages. Highest numbers I've seen, the lowest numbers I've seen. It was a nightmare. And I mean, by day 2 of 8, like the beginning of the trip, I was like, this is stupid. I think I'm just going to go to bed and let it sit at, I think I was like 276 or something. I was like, I don't even care anymore. I'm done. And that's another red flag, if you've ever felt that way before. When you don't care, oh, that's not a good spot to be in. And I recognized this trend now as I look back at this, and I hope to give it to you as a warning, that first to go was emotional burnout, where I got angry, I was upset, and I was stressed out. I was a stress ball to be around. I was not pleasant for most people during that time. Now, after emotions went out, where I was just angry all the time, and then kind of depression, there's probably a touch of the 5 stages of, what is it, grief or something? See, I have a hard time acknowledging emotions. That's also just a little side part of me. Man, we're going into the deep end with this one, huh? After emotions, mental health suffered. That one was where I finally shared with my family right before the full distance Ironman that I was not doing well. And I needed extra love and support and attention, right? Where I was like, I'm having a hard time wanting to be here, if you catch my drift. It wasn't that bad, but I was not having a good time. Now, after emotional went downhill and mental went downhill, my diabetes followed suit, right? Where I just stopped trying as hard. I stopped taking action to prevent out of range blood sugars because it felt hopeless. And at that point, when you lose sight of hope, you lose your reason to control, right? Or your reason to live in some cases. Hope is a very strong motivator, and in the lack of hope, or in the absence of hope, I mean, that's where people take turns for the worse, right? So when blood sugars were not responding well, and it turns out it was a mixture of bad absorption at my sites, bad insulin, and also poor choices. In Hawaii, we went to some restaurants, I made some poor decisions that I did not calculate appropriately for. In other words, I had really good food that is totally fine to eat, but I didn't take enough insulin for it. And there's a whole story behind that. But long story short, diabetes burnout followed pretty quick after emotions and mental burnout were already present. And then what's interesting is that after my half Ironman race, which I did set a PR in, and I don't have the plaque here anymore, but I accomplished something really incredible, even as what a non-diabetic would be considered an incredible feat, athletic feat. The Ironman organization sent me a plaque, and they're like, you get this award. I'll have to share about it in the future. It's actually really exciting. But as you can tell, probably now, I sound a little sick, right? So after emotional, mental, and diabetes burnout was physical burnout. See, after Ironman events, you're supposed to take a break after any physical event that challenges your body to, anything beyond what your previous limits were, you should take a break, recover. That's a normal process. I have a hard time stopping. I have a hard time celebrating milestones and victories. I don't fully know what that is linked to, but I can tell you that I never feel good enough, ever. I celebrated Ironman for like an hour, and I was like, okay, what's next? And I haven't even talked about this yet, but after my half Ironman, setting a PR, I signed up for an ultra marathon like a day later. I was like, all right, whatever, it's old news, and it's this insatiable drive to accomplish more difficult things. And this is just me sharing with you. So this is a bit of a processing bit for me. But I signed up for an ultra marathon. I've never done that before. My first marathon ever was the Ironman. So if you don't know, you swim 2.4 miles, then you bike 112 miles, and then you run a marathon. I had never run any marathons before. So my first marathon was part of an Ironman. And so at this point, I'm like, well, my second marathon might as well be an ultra marathon. Let's go crazy. So that's something I need to work on, probably. I don't know. There's probably some deeper rooted stuff in that realm anyways, but for you, I want to make sure you get value from this as well. The physical toll that takes on you is too much to just roll straight from event to event to event, more. It's called overtraining, right? And I finally was, I don't even know how to describe this other than my body kept the score, and it let me know that I was losing, right? So I pushed straight into ultra marathon training, which is a lot of elevation as well. And long story short, I'll try and keep this brief because I know we're getting a bit long in this episode as I'm processing my own psych issues. I have 2 feet, and both of them are stress fractured right now. And so what used to be a solid workout plan where I go out for a 15-mile run and call it a day, my workout tomorrow is a 30-minute walk because that's all I can do right now. I've had to cancel my registration for the ultra marathon because it was way too soon anyways. I tried to train for an ultra marathon in 2 months. Stupid. In addition to that, as you can tell, I am sick. I got pretty sick, and I've been sick for over a week. It's lingering now. I'm fine. I'll be fine. But the point is, burnout isn't just a lack of willpower, right? And a lot of people think burnout is, I just don't want to take care of it. That's part of it, but there are other aspects to this as well in all areas of life. Relational burnout is another one. Thank God my wife is patient with me because that could have been another one. Definitely set our relationship on pause while I pursued Ironman. And we talked about it beforehand where I was like, we're going to have to cut date nights because I'm just going to have to be working out all the time. And now we're catching up on date nights. So I owe her a lot. But emotional burnout led to mental burnout, led to diabetes burnout. And that's where the willpower was gone, right? And was able to, after a few weeks of burnout, where I did lose my streak, and that's the part where I feel like I failed the community. It's really hard for me to admit this because I was so prideful about it and so proud because doctors told me it was impossible and I proved them wrong, right? It's one of the things we love doing, right? As renegade warriors. But I lost the streak of 90% time in range that I had been holding for 5.5 years straight while training for an Ironman. Are you kidding me? Man, it's hard just to let that go. But a couple of weeks of rough blood sugars and it was gone. The day that it happened, I was depressed, where I was like, 5.5 years streak gone, right? In a single day, lost it. And that happened while we were at Hawaii. So that's also why Hawaii kind of lost my will for trying with blood sugars. So I was like, if I can't be 90%, I'll just be 0, which is a super dangerous mindset. You do not want to have an all or nothing mindset. It's super unhealthy. Thankfully, snapped out of it. My wife was like, don't die, right? And I was like, you're right. So I did take care of myself, but I didn't try as hard. And so for those couple of weeks, blood sugar suffered, in my opinion, massively. I know that comparatively, it's still better than 99% of diabetics, But for me, I hold myself to extremely high standards. It felt like a failure. And when I tell you that my time in range suffered, I looked at my 90-day reports before this, and actually I pulled it up. I'll put it on screen as well so you guys can see it. My current 90-day report, and this is where I want to shift a little bit in this episode. Current 90-day report, 86% time in range. And this does include full-blown burnout, where I just did not take care of myself. Now, you might think about that and hear 86%, and average glucose 146, not ideal, not terrible. Standard deviation 32. It's actually pretty good, which means I was stable, but I was probably just running a bit higher for a while. For burnout to be included in that is absolutely insane, right? Like, if I remove my pride from this scenario, that's freaking good. Now, I hate seeing 86% because I'm the guy that holds 90% as a bare minimum standard, right, for myself. But when I think about it contextually, and I encourage you to do this as well, if I give myself grace, I'm like, you're going through some stuff, 86% through this lens is impressive. And of course, we look at the base of this on the screenshot, and it says this is less than 5, or it says minus 5% change since prior 90-day period, which means prior to this, I was 91% time in range. And for the last 5.5 years, it was above that as well. So this tells me two things. One, I got some work to do. I will not quit. I will not give up. I will not stop. I am on a mission. And that mission includes helping you. And I know that helping you is not possible if I give up, if I stop posting this stuff, if I stop sharing parts of my journey, and especially it is impossible if I ever stop being completely transparent with you. I want you to know that everything that I share here is 100% true. It is honest and it is raw. So if I ever tell you that I am 90% time in range for over 5.5 years straight, you believe it, because Matt will share the bad stuff when it's not true, when things go wrong, when he has a hard time. The other part of this, though, is recognizing something that I did not realize until today, which is when I realized I needed to make this episode. It was no longer a question of if, it was when. And that when is now, because 86% represents the worst control that I have had in a very long time. 86% is me looking at this in disgust and just thinking, Matt, how could you? And then taking a step back and realizing 86% is dang good, right? The standard that doctors set for their patient's goal, like the end goal, is 70%. Like if you get to 70%, you're getting a high five from your doctor. That is absurd. So if I let this go and don't preach about this, people are going to think that 70% is optimal. That is an embarrassing standard set by our medical community. I reject that. 86% being where it lands when I fall on my face is insane. And why I share that, it's not to build me up. It's not for my ego. This is embarrassing for me. It is to show you the power of blood sugar formulas. Because when I lost the will to take care of my own diabetes, blood sugar formulas are what kept me from falling through the floor, right? See, blood sugar formulas raised the floor to where previously the ceiling had been set by my medical team, right? So let's draw this out. If the ceiling was set at 70% by my medical team, and 86% is now my floor, like that's what happens when I fall. That's the worst possible scenario. That's insane, right? And that, I believe, is the goal of progress, or in weight training terms, this would be progressive overload, right? Where you challenge yourself, you grow, and then you recover as you establish that as your new baseline. So your previous maximum effort is now your baseline, your standard. And then from there, you push further, establish a new higher threshold. Now that's your baseline, right? Recover, establish it. Then you try again, challenge yourself, push. Now you've established a new higher threshold as your new baseline. And so when you do inevitably fall or miss a workout or get injured, you don't fall back to square one, you fall down one ladder tier, right? So you fall down one step, not the whole staircase. And that one step down enables you to get up, dust yourself off, and then take just one step up again. And you're right back where you were, right? Which is exactly why I'm going to show you my 30-day report. Told you it's been about a month or two since I experienced this burnout. Finally got back on the horse. My 30-day report today, 30 days ago, 93% time in range. Average glucose 140, standard deviation 28. Still not my best, but we're moving in the right direction, and I'm back in the green, back above 90%, because I've got formulas. These are, and by the way, if formulas are too hard to understand or conceptualize, it's a framework, right? I have a framework for how to snap back in action, get my blood sugars under control in dang near an instant, right? So a big part of what I wanted to share with you today was the reality of type 1 diabetes. I am not immune to the impacts of this thing on the mental side, right? I fell, I hated it. I was asking myself, why me, right? As I saw blood sugars in the 40s while in Hawaii, and then boom, 276 the next day. And it wasn't even a rebound from the low. It was just a separate thing. I hate this sometimes, but it's also taught me some incredible life lessons. The second point to this is that if you have blood sugar formulas set up, you've raised your threshold. You have established a new baseline so that if you fall, you don't fall all the way down. See, the important piece behind this too, that my clients have been telling me for years, and I didn't realize how important it was until today. See, my clients have been sharing, sorry, this sickness is really getting to me, but this message is really important to me. So I want to make sure that you get this. You can't wait. My clients have been sharing with me for years that when they have a terrible week, they'll come crawling back to a coaching call and say, Matt, it's been the worst week ever. Had this high, had this low. And I'm like, where are we sitting at with time in range? And they're like, oh, it's so embarrassing. It's 83%. And I'm like, when you joined the program 3 weeks ago, your time in range was 20%. Now, because you've raised your standard and your threshold baseline, you have a bad week and it's 83%. That's 63% higher than your previous average. Raise your standards, raise your baseline. Best way to do that is with the blood sugar formula. And this is honestly, I tell people this on consultations all the time. The 80-20 blood sugar formula saved my life. Not just physically with blood sugars, but mentally, because it's given me the freedom and the flexibility to do what I want and not be held back, right? Now, that being said, it is not a cure. It's not a fix-all, right? You still got to fix your mind, which is actually why a lot of what I do with my clients has subtle mindset lessons baked into it, because if you're not motivated to take care of yourself, you won't, right? If you stop taking insulin, there's nothing that you can rely on outside of yourself to do it. So there has to be a level of mental fortitude as well. But I share this as a lesson of hope. And of course, at the beginning of this, I shared that hope is the key. Without hope, there's no reason to do anything, right? And so what I wanted to share with you is that formulas are the hope behind blood sugars. It's the chance that we have to continue on without massive effort. It's something to lean on, not only when we want better blood sugars of getting that 100% time in range, but also something to lean on when times are tough. And it's honestly the only reason I was able to enjoy the rest of that Hawaii trip with my family, right? And so this is a different style episode. I hope that you found some value in it. Obviously, I've still got some processing to do in my own life, but I wanted to get this message out there because burnout's real in all areas of life, and it has a very delayed impact that sometimes can sneak under the radar. It took months for me to finally see the impacts of my decisions. And when it finally hit, it felt like there was no stopping it. Now, second lesson that I want you to take home is it's something that I'm going to be implementing in my own life and have been implementing, which is rest, recovery, right? You can't work out every single day and expect to continue growing. You have to actually stop working out so your muscles can recover. I'm using that as an example, not saying you should all work out, though you should. It's good for your health and your mind and your diabetes. But workouts aside, you need rest mentally as well. And so for diabetes, that might even look like, an automatic day where you're like, I'm just going to eat foods that are pre-portioned. I already know the carb counts, so I don't have to carb count. I don't have to think about insulin because I know how much insulin I need for that food, right? Or some days where you just pull back a little bit, give yourself a break on the numbers. Don't judge yourself for time and range or whatever it is. Find your version of rest so that you have that opportunity to take your foot off the gas. And I know that a lot of you are high achievers like myself. Whether you're a performance athlete, you might be a high achiever in your career, you might just be a type A person like us that wants to achieve the best version of yourself. But remember that without rest, burnout is more likely and you won't grow as far. You might grow faster initially, but then you'll crash like I did and it slows everything down. Right now I've got 2 stupid stress fractures in my feet. I can't walk for more than 30 minutes. It's the dumbest thing ever because I'm supposed to go run 50K and I can't, right? I went too hard for too long and now I'm stuck. And that happened to my diabetes for weeks on end. Didn't take care of myself. I was depressed. With my physical health, now I can't do the stuff that I want to do. Like my muscles are ready, my body is ready, but I can't even do the stinking race that I signed up for because I pushed too hard. So my physical burnout is also real. So recognizing that you got to stop and rest, right? I mean, this is even biblical for any of my other Christians out there, right? It's in the Bible. God, on the 7th day after creating everything, rested. If God needs rest, what makes us think that we don't need rest? Right? And even if you don't believe that, just take that lesson home that you need to recover. You need a break. You can't go forever. Now, lastly, before we wrap up for today, the thing that I want to leave you with is the next step that comes with hope baked in. Okay, so if you are new here or if you've been around for a while, you know I talk about blood sugar formulas a lot, right? It's the thing that saved my life and allows me now to live my best life. You saw the numbers. I'm back in 90% time in range, 93 for the last 30 days, 96 for the last week. It's science and math. That's it. Like, you don't have to question your decisions with diabetes. It truly is an equation. And if you don't know how that works yet, or if you don't have one personalized to your needs as somebody living with insulin-dependent type 1 diabetes, you got to go check out the training that we have. It gives you the foundations and introductions to blood sugar formulas. It's completely free. It's a resource we made a while back to help people get started on their blood sugar formula journey. You can go to diabetesinaction.com. Register for the training, watch it in its entirety. If it's something you'd like help with, of course, we can offer assistance, point you in the direction of some other resources. Maybe it's a good fit for us working together on yours. But at the very least, go check out that training, take some notes, and use it. Actually implement the lessons in there. So diabetesinaction.com. And remember to check in with yourself. Internally, you got to make sure that you're doing okay. The motivation, the willpower, it's important. I hate to say it, but it's critical as part of managing type 1 diabetes as well. So the most under-discussed aspect of diabetes is the mental health side. And I want to make sure you're taking care of yourself, not just with the numbers, but also with your mind. So hope you enjoyed this one. Hopefully it didn't scare too many of you away, but for those of you who made it to the end, I appreciate you, and I truly hope you're doing well. Have an amazing rest of your day. Find something to be grateful for, and keep up the fight.